Welcome to episode 43 of Little Big Knits. This is a podcast about knitting primarily, and I'm your host. My name is Selma. You can find me as selmaknits on Instagram and Ravelry. I hope this podcast finds you well today. We happen to have a lovely sunny day here in Ottawa, where I live with my family and our cat Yoda. So welcome today. As you can see, there's a Christmassy vibe starting to happen in the house. We don't have our tree yet, but we actually decorated the mantle, and that's been up for about a week or so, and we are slowly getting into the Christmas vibe. I know this year there's been a lot of, I feel like more enthusiasm about Christmas than usual, but here it's been a little bit of a slower start. I have been busy doing my Christmas knitting, so I'll be sharing some of that with you, as well as some Advent knitting. So actually today, of course, I'll be sharing my finished objects as well as what I'm working on, a little bit of acquisition this time. I'll be announcing the giveaway from our last episode when I announced the giveaway from Mina Phillip for her Cows of Persia. And I'll also be talking about a new knit-along that will be starting on December 24th. So I'll get to that a little bit later, and then probably finish the episode with some of the books and things that I've been watching, books I've been listening to, and things I've been watching. And thank you for all the wonderful comments last time. It was really fun to read through all of them. And hello, here we are again. Before I get started, I'll just let you know that I'm drinking a fabulous tea in this mug. It is oolong tea, but it's actually a milk oolong tea that I got from Genuine Tea, which is a company somewhere in Ontario, I believe. And I love milk oolong, and I hadn't had it for a long time. It's a bit of a treat because it's a bit of a pricey tea. But when I saw it, I thought, I haven't had milk oolong in such a long time. And I'm drinking it out of this mug that my dear friend Kate of the Hawthorne Cottage Craft, who's got Vlogmas going on right now, by the way, you should go and watch. I like to watch my friend Kate every day. Anyway, she sent me a package, unbeknownst to me. It was a surprise that I received in October, and it was an advent calendar of little minis, similar to what we had done last year when we exchanged advent calendars, except that this time we hadn't planned and it just came out of the blue. So she had kept herself some minis and had sent me minis as well as little treats, and we are knitting something together, which I'll show you later. But part of the package was this wonderful mug by a potter that is local to her in Ireland, and I'll put the name down here because right off the top of my head I've forgotten it. It was Natasha something or other, and I've just really been enjoying this mug. It's got this lovely sort of whimsical Christmas feel to it, and it's just a really nice feel, a nice weight, a nice handle. It's a great mug, and I'm enjoying my tea out of it pretty much every day. All right, so without further ado, let's begin. So what am I wearing today? I am wearing my very beloved Camden Hills poncho. However, you'll notice mine is not a poncho. Mine is more of a vest. This is a design by Elizabeth Smith, the Camden Hills poncho. And I really loved it, but I didn't want something that was quite so oversized. And I think it was meant to be knitted with worsted yarn, and I ended up choosing more of a sport weight yarn and knitting it so that it had about, 4 or 5 inches of ease perhaps, to have just a really nice drape and be a vest. I made this out of Persimmon tree yarns, Persimmon tree farm yarns, I believe they're called. They sell at Rhinebeck every time I go, and so I ended up buying their alpaca base. They normally do a lot of very sort of variegated and bright dyeing, but they have this natural alpaca that I was just so drawn to. I've bought it more than once. I think this could end up being my desert island yarn. I just love this alpaca. It is absolutely stunning. It's a little pricey, but the two things that I've made out of it, this as well as my evening Jew cardigan, which you saw a couple of episodes ago, I just absolutely love this alpaca. It's just truly, truly lovely. It has a nice drape. You know, I would never use alpaca for a very structured garment, but something that just sits and drapes a little bit, it's wonderful for. So I'll just stand up so that you can have a sense of what it's like. It's got, oops, I'm a little bit too high today. It's got a split hem with a little bit of a lace detail here in front. Garter ridges. I ended up making mine two-tone because I had bought 2 tones of the alpaca. It's got a little bit of a detail here, wonderful short row shaping that just makes it sit really nicely. So I really, really adore this piece. I wear it a lot. I wore a vest last time too. I do have a little bit of a thing for vests, and I thought maybe my next share should be my vest collection. Not that it's very large, and I do hope to add to it this coming year, but I do love wearing vests. So yeah, so this is what I'm wearing today. In terms of what I have finished, I'm feeling a little bit nervous about sharing my finished objects because there are family members around, but hopefully they'll go away soon. I'll share first the ones that they don't, you know, doesn't matter if they know about. I was showing these to you last time and I actually didn't even get sock blockers, but I have finished these socks that I was knitting last time. I think I was already on the second sock last time. These are just some simple vanilla socks with the basic gusset heel by Wendy D. Johnson toe up that I made out of Knit Picks Felice yarn in the Nassau colorway. And so these are finished. I actually did a twisted rib. I'm starting to like twisted rib a little more. I wasn't a huge fan of it. But I decided to do a twisted rib at the top for something a little different. So I finished these not long after our last podcast, and I still have quite a bit of yarn left, so I'm thinking that they might become some fingerless gloves at some point. But for now, I've got a pair of socks. I still haven't quite decided who I'm going to give these to. So as I'm kind of in the midst of my Christmas gift allocation time, so we'll see who this ends up, this pair of socks ends up going to. But that got finished. I made those on 2.25 millimeter needles. The next thing that got finished was something that I just cast on a whim. As soon as I saw the pattern, I knew exactly which yarn I wanted to use, and I went and got it. You know, the 2 yarn bowls that I normally have up here, they've been moved away for the Christmas decorating time of the year. But in there were leftovers from the Advent sock skein that I knit up last year from the Cozy Knitter. So her Advent 2019. And I still had a good 30 grams of each 50-gram skein to use up. So this year I bought the Helen Stewart or Curious Handmade Knit Vent collection. She puts out this collection which comes out in installments in mostly the month of November, and with patterns that you can then knit during the Advent season. And there were some lovely things in there this time. A really nice cowl that I would like to make at some point, and a hat, just different things. And one of the things that was in there that really caught my eye, and as I said, I cast it on the same day that the pattern came out, and I finished it a couple of days later. Out of the Cozy Knitter yarn were these fingerless gloves. They are a very, very simple design. They're meant to be knit with minis, and about the same number of rows per mini. So they're just perfect for leftover yarns, little bits of bobs of yarns that you may have, or self-striping yarn. So I have made these for Isla, and hopefully Isla will like them. But they'll probably go in the stocking at Christmas time. So they were super simple, super fun, super quick. Just really, really loved these. And because they don't even have a gusset, they're just really, really simple to make. Lovely pattern. I love this little detail that just creates a bit of a wave in the striping. Super duper fun. So highly recommend this pattern. I could see myself making more of these. They're just really, really nice. Then the other thing that I finished, and I think Alejandro has gone to the basement because he has no clue about what I'm making for him this year, or that I'm even making him anything. I have been knitting these things in secret, is the gray hat that I was making him out of mystery alpaca that my friend Kate here in Canada, not in Ireland, had given to me. I told you about it last time. So I have finished his hat, which I actually really, really like. I knit this hat on 3.25 millimeter needles. I cast on 130, and I did a lot of rib. As you can see, the rib goes there, and I knit along, and then I had wanted to do the same four corner sort of crown decreases as I had done on Yaro's hat. I think I showed this to you guys last time. I got it out again because I want to tell you about it, something about it. So I had done this four corner crown inspired by, I think it's called the Four Corners Hat by Jared Flood. It's a free pattern. I think it's his only free pattern. And I've always liked that detail. So I'd wanted to do that on, I did it on this hat, but I had wanted to do it on here. But then I realized that with 130 stitches, it didn't divide into 4 or 8. So I just went along with a more classic top for this particular hat. And it's worked out really well. I actually really, really like it. I was kind of thinking, gee, maybe I should make one for myself. Anyway, I really like this yarn a lot. It's a lovely yarn, even though it's a little bit more of a rustic alpaca, not quite as buttery as this particular one. It's a nice feeling hat to wear. So hopefully he'll like that. I better put it away before he comes up. He went down to the basement. But what I'm going to tell you is that the hat that I made for Yaro, I realized that I did not make the brim long enough for this. In Alejandro's hat, I made it really long so that when you turned it over, you didn't end up with stockinette stitch showing up underneath. And I did not do this for Yaro's hat, and so it's a little bit awkward when you turn it over to not have the reverse stockinette show up. So I have decided that I'm actually going to cut here because it's a bottom up. I can't undo it from the bottom, and re-knit all ribbing for the bottom portion of the hat. And then I think it'll be a much nicer wearing hat, and that won't take a whole lot of time. And I have a little bit of leftover black yarn if I need to, you go into the other skein. One FO I realized that I didn't tell you about is the OSLO hat Mohair edition. I was knitting a green one last time, and I actually finished it and I gave it to a young lady in our lives, and so I don't have it here to show you, but I'll pop a picture up here so that you can see what it looked like. It turned out great. However, there's this like detail in the fold over that was somehow very mind-boggling for me. But I really liked the hat. So after I finished the green one, I decided that I wanted to knit myself a pink one. And I wanted to use up this yarn that I had by Wales Street I don't think she's dyeing yarn any longer, but she had given this to the podcast. I had given some away as prizes, and I had kept this pink, wanting to eventually make something with it. So I decided that I wanted to make an Oslo hat with this, this tiny little bit left of this sadness garn mohair that I had used for my dotted rays shawl in the spring. I had put it with some peach yarn from Hedgerow Yarns and made a gorgeous dotted rays shawl. And so I still had almost an entire ball left of this. So I wanted to put the two together to make myself a hat. I finished the hat and then I decided to rip it out. So it's in the whip category again, although it was an FO for a short while, because something in the fold over brim was just boggling my mind. I don't even know why. And after I finished the hat, I finally had a revelation and I was like, ding, I finally understand this. And I thought, that's it, I'm ripping back and doing it right so that the hat sits exactly the way I want it to sit. And also something in the crown, I was playing yarn chicken and I think I had gone a little bit too far. And so it was just kind of sitting up in a way that I didn't like it. So I thought, that's fine. I'm in no rush to get this hat. So although it was a whip, it is now once again, although it was a finished object, it is now once again a work in progress. So I won't tell you too much because it's a paid for pattern, but there's some flipping that you have to do with stockinette and reverse stockinette. And there's something about that just, like, my mind would not do the mental rotation needed for it. But I am now, actually should go the other way. I've now flipped over and I have finished the brim portion of the hat and onto the body. I'm having a hard time showing this to you, but I'll definitely show it to you, hopefully finished next time I podcast. The combination is just beautiful and I just love it. I'm going to really enjoy wearing this on the colder days because the brim is double and then the rest of the hat makes it so that you have 3 layers of knitting here, so it'll be a very warm hat. So I'm very excited about this. So I had to reball the yarn, so that's why I couldn't show you the actual mohair because it's been knit up, and here is the mohair as well as the fingering yarn together being reknit. And it is being housed in the same bag that the other Oslo hat was being housed in, which is this bag by Jenna Rose, who is a bag maker here in the Ottawa-Gatineau area. Another thing that I have on the needles, and I can talk about now because the receiver is again not in the room, is a pair of socks for Alejandro. I had showed this to you last time. I'm still working on these socks. These seem to be the slowest of my Christmas makes for some reason. I finished the first one. This pair of socks is being knit out of novita venla. I cannot remember the colorway, but it's a Finnish yarn that friend Johanna had sent to me from Finland in the summer in a package, and I've decided to make a pair of socks for Alejandro. So I finished the first one. Partly what took me a long time with this is that I made a different kind of heel. So I knit the socks toe up. Wendy D. Johnson has a heel flap recipe that I don't know off by heart. So I always have to look, and somehow that was, it was taking me time to finally get to it. And then when I did, knitting the rest of the foot was easy peasy. I did a 3x1 rib here. And because Alejandro has rather skinny ankles, I usually have to decrease stitches here. So I ended up decreasing, I think, 4 stitches and then doing a rib, thinking that'll probably stay up really well on his leg. I am on the second one. Almost, I think I'm just a few rows away from starting the gusset. And then those will be finished by Christmas. But those are, again, another project that I have to knit when he's not around. And so I usually, I've been going to visit my mother a couple of times a week during the week in the evenings and then once on the weekends. to watch TV with her. I go and we just hang out and chat, and I've been knitting on those there. And these were being housed in this sauna bag that I showed you guys last time, the sauna kassi. So that is a whip. I can't even keep track of what I'm talking to you guys about today. I just feel like I have a lot going on. Something else that I just started for a friend of mine. It won't be a Christmas present. I'll just finish it when I finish it. I've already showed her the yarn. It's this yarn by, it's by Hikoo, and it's the Kenzie yarn. And it's basically 50% New Zealand merino, 25% nylon, 10% angora, 10% alpaca, and 5% silk oils. And it is this yarn called Kenzie. And I bought it because the color, I spent a lot of time at a yarn shop in town called Woolen Things, looking at yarns, trying to find a color for her. And then when I saw this, I realized this is a great color for her. She looks good in jewel tones. And so I am starting a Westboro hat for her, although I probably will use the Westboro numbers, but not do the baubles. She doesn't strike me as a bauble kind of person. So I've just started the rib, and again, this is one of those things that I'll knit on it when I do. Now that I know, I confirmed with her that she didn't want baubles, I can start the rest of the hat. And again, we've got the little Venus of Willendorf progress keeper there that I just adore, or stitch marker. She's really a stitch marker. So that's been started. And I haven't gotten very far in it, but it's being housed in this great little bag that my friend Sue made for me. What was it, for birthday, Christmas, just for fun? Can't remember. Out of fabric that was my fabric in my stash that I'd had since, I don't know, the 80s perhaps. And she ended up making me a few things with this. So this bag, that's one of these bags that you can hold like that. And so I've got the pattern in there, or the project in there. Okay, so one of the projects that I started a while ago is the Stay Soft Shawl by VEERA VALIMAK. Now, last year I went to a retreat in Ireland and then spent about a week with my friend Kate there, touring a part of the island of Ireland. And at the retreat, there was a wonderful group of people, and we have, since lockdown started in March, we have had a really great group of people on Instagram chatting at least weekly, if not daily, and we've had some Zoom gatherings as well. And we had a little bit of a reunion at the very beginning of November, and we decided to have a knit along that is inspired by the retreat. So whether it's something that somebody else was wearing or somebody else had made, or yarn that we picked up at the retreat. So I decided to make the Stay Soft Shawl. And I had such a hard time choosing yarn for this pattern. I kept looking at peachy yarns, but then I realized, okay, I just finished the Venezia, which is peach, kind of a peachy pink, and I had done the Dotted Rays in the spring that was peachy pink. So I thought, okay, Selma, maybe that's enough peachy pink for this year. And then I thought, I do want it in something light colored and neutral. So I ended up settling on 3 skeins of yarn by the Wool Barn. I love Maya's yarn. It just so happened that they all looked so nice together. So I have gotten the first 2 sections of this shawl done. So I do not remember what the bases are, to be honest, so I'll put them on the screen. But this, I think, is a merino silk base in something called a Hint of Pearl. This is out of her tweed sock, which she no longer carries, but I had gotten 2 skeins of it, this gray and one that was more of a taupey color. So I decided to use the skein in here. So it starts with one, there's a bit of a striping happening, and then you do a solid section. And then the third yarn, I remember that the colorway is Cozy, but I don't remember what the base is. Although it feels very much like the cream, is one, and I'm just starting the third section where you go up the side of the shawl, and it is out of this sort of more of a brown color. So it will be kind of like cream, gray, and brown together. And I am so looking forward to having this. It got put aside a bit. I was speeding through it, but it got put aside when I realized I really needed to get onto my Christmas knitting. So, but I just this week started the brown bit, and I'll continue that here and there, and then probably finish it over the Christmas holidays if I don't have time before that. Got lots of plans for December with knitting as well as some baking, and it'll be a different kind of Christmas because we probably won't be gathering. Unfortunately, I just found out that we won't be able to have my mother over at all, which I find very disappointing, but I totally understand. And so it'll be a quieter Christmas than usual, but I still want to do some of the things that we normally do, like our gingerbread making and cookies, as well as our gingerbread house. And we have a tradition of making spoon cookies every year. I usually have a party and people come over and make spoon cookies. I probably won't be doing that this year, but I still want to make some spoon cookies, as well as some other baking that I've decided I want to make this year. So I'm going to be busy with all that stuff. So I don't know, I hope to finish the socks for Alejandro, as well as my Advent knitting, which I'm going to show you next. And then everything else I will deal with as of December 24th. So in this wonderful bag that my friend Kate of Hawthorne Cottage Craft made for me last year as part of our Advent exchange last year, I pulled out for this year's Advent program. Advent knitting. So in this bag is the Advent knitting, and basically what we decided to do, because as I said, Kate sent this Advent to me kind of out of the blue. It was a secret package that I received suddenly in the middle of October. We have decided to co-knit a cardigan. We have chosen the Caramel Cardigan by ISABELKRAEMER. It's one of her very early patterns. It's actually a free pattern. I think it may be, she's got a couple of free patterns from the beginning. And we thought what we really needed more than anything was just the raglan counts. So we chose that. If you're watching Kate's Vlogmas, you'll see that she's got that going, and ours look pretty much exactly the same because she kept the exact same amount of mini for herself. So 10 grams for me, 10 grams for her in the same order. So we're gonna have twinsy cardigans. I think we may be both knitting the same size as well. I'm actually knitting the small because I decided to knit it on larger needles with a looser gauge to have sort of a airier and loftier cardigan. And the purpose for this whole thing was for it to become kind of a house cardigan. I had a cardigan, the February Lady cardigan, which I had made years ago out of Malabrigo worsted, which is a single ply yarn. Single ply yarns are not fabulous for sweaters always. They pill like crazy, and that sweater became pretty unattractive rather quickly and became my house cardigan. In the spring, I finally decided that I had worn it enough. It had holes in it. It was pretty ugly, and it was going to be put aside, put away, and said goodbye to. So I didn't have anything, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna probably need something. My evening dew has sort of become the cardigan that I wear the most, but I don't want it to be the house cardigan. I don't necessarily want to wear it in that way. It's a beautiful cardigan. It is something that I don't want to wear out too quickly. So I decided that wouldn't it be great for us to have, or well, for me, and I think this is probably Kate's intention as well, to have a house cardigan again. So that's what this project is going to become. And I have been opening the minis every day. There are too many stitches on the needles, but I am getting close to the end of the raglan portion. And this is it. I'm so excited about it. I cannot wait every day to sit down and knit this. What I'm doing, I bought a bunch of mohair from Acme Fibres, which is an online shop out of the east coast of Canada, and they sell yarns that are meant for dyeing. So they sell essentially undyed yarns of different bases, different weights. And I happened to go on one day and realize that they had mohair at a reasonable price. So I thought, I want a cream mohair for this project, so I bought enough for this project and have wound that up. I actually opened my mini from today, but I just started putting it in this morning. And the last mini is of hedgerow yarns. But so every day I knit the mini into the cardigan, and it's just so much fun. And what happens is that even though alone the minis may not go together, the mohair becomes sort of a unifying force in the cardigan, in the work, right? It brings them all together. So even though alone they wouldn't be great together, with mohair they are. So you see, mohair is just a unifying force in the world. So I think this first mini, which is a beautiful purple gray yarn, was Fine Fish. This second one is Sweet Sparrow Yarns in her Hedwig colorway, I believe. This third one and this turquoise here are both Lay family yarns. And then this very pale pink here is Woolly Mammoth Fibres in her Natural Sock in Jasmine. And then, as I said, this last mini is by Hedgerow Yarns. Super fun, speckly colorway that's going in. And it's going in right after that other turquoise. So it's going to give a more colorful feeling to this portion of the cardigan, because it sort of turned out quite neutral up here. So this I am knitting on 5mm needles, and my gauge, I think the pattern calls for 22 and my gauge is about an 18. So I decided to knit the small, and I'm following the numbers, but if I get to the number, the sleeve for example, and I realize it's not quite loose enough in the sleeves, and I'll probably just add a couple of more increases, and you know, it's just gonna be really fun. The thing about this cardigan is that the front portion really overlaps. So in the first little advent pouch that I got, there was this beautiful shawl pin, and so the shawl pin I think will become part of the caramel cardigan. So talk about perfection. And one of the other things that came in the advent from Hedgerow Yarns was this wonderful little Kitchener reminder, which I definitely need. So I have one notions pouch that I tend to use the most, and what I'm finding is happening with it is that it's getting overly stuffed and a bit messy. So one of my goals for the next little while will be to set up 2 or 3 notions pouches so that I can have one in my project bag most of the time, because often I find myself at a loss. And so I actually have another Kitchener reminder, and so they will each be in one bag, which will be great. But I know that Hedgerow Yarns makes these wonderful, wonderful little Kitchener reminders. These are recipes, Kitchener recipes. So this is so much fun. Like, I look forward to it every day. And before I got the package from Kate, I had actually thought about making up my own advent. Now, I just think there are only so many Advent projects a girl can have. I don't know what I would make next year. I absolutely love the habitation throw that I made last year, which I also double-stranded with mohair. It's an absolute delight to have on one's legs, and it really is very warm because of the mohair. So I don't know, I'll see what I might do next year if I do it again. There is something really fun about it. So we'll see what ends up happening next year. But for now, I'm just going with it. I'm just having oodles of fun. So I think that's it for my whips. So why don't we do the giveaway now? So the giveaway was for the wonderful, wonderful collection of colorwork cowls that Mina Phillip has put out recently, and had very generously donated one as a giveaway prize for the podcast. And so last time I gave you guys a prompt of what is your relationship to colorwork? Is it something you like, something you hate, something you'd like to try? And we had 273 entries, most of which were about colorwork. You didn't have to comment anything about colorwork if you didn't want to. It was really neat to read. Some people absolutely love colorwork. Some people do it, like me, are not always, don't necessarily find it to be the most enjoyable experience, let's put it that way. Some people haven't tried it, would really like to try it, but are slightly intimidated. So there was just a whole gamut of experiences with colorwork. And it was really interesting to hear. So I ran the random number generator thingamajiggy this morning and pulled up comment number 125. So that happens to be Sue N. So Sue N, congratulations. Please get in touch with me, whether it's here on YouTube or on Ravelry or on Instagram, and let me know your Ravelry name so that Mina can gift you that collection. Congratulations. And her collection, of course, is up for sale. So if you are wanting to get it, I certainly encourage you. It is really, really very beautiful. And so, yeah, and Sue's comment really had to do with having done some color work, not sure that she would feel comfortable with knitting with more than 2 strands at a time. And I totally hear you. I have to say, I think it was in the Talia sweater that I made for my friend last winter or spring. There was a couple of rows where there were 3 colors, and that definitely was a little bit challenging. I'm not sure I would make an entire yoke with 3 colors constantly, but a row here and there wasn't too bad. So yeah, so thank you for participating in that, and for sharing your experiences with colorwork. So that did make me think, though, that colorwork is something that I would like to do more of. First of all, I have some patterns that I really want to knit, and there are some techniques that I would like to try. So I thought maybe we should have a color play knit along. And I started thinking about it because there are lots of colorwork techniques. Stranded knitting is one. Intarsia is another. Mosaic knitting is another one. Brioche is another one. There's shadow knitting, there's double knitting. So there are lots of sort of color work techniques. So I decided that on December 24th, I am going to cast on. So my Christmas Eve cast on is going to be the Silver Forest sweater by Jennifer Steingass, which I've had in my stash and in my well, I have the pattern and I have the yarn, and I've had that since 2018 because I bought a whole quantity of this VEERA when I went to Finland 2 years ago. So in 2018 in August, my mother and I went to Finland to attend a funeral, and in Helsinki I went to the Menita yarn shop and bought a sweater quantity of this yarn, this being the main color and these 3 being the colorwork colors for the Silver Forest sweater by Jennifer Steingass. and I have been wanting, when I sort of plan my knitting, it's always in the plan and I just never get to it. And so I thought, December 24th, I am casting this baby on, and I thought, why don't we kick off a colorwork KAL during that time? So if you are so inclined and want to join in, join me on December 24th or anytime thereafter. I decided that this will go on until July 1st. So this knit along, which will be called the colourplayKAL, and I'll put that down here so you can see it. So if you want to use the hashtag, it'll be colourplayKAL, and I'll start a thread for chatter and a thread for finished objects in our group on Ravelry as well. So you're welcome to join me anytime during that time. So the only sort of technique that won't be allowed as a color play, even though it is kind of a color play, is striping. Stripes, you know, there isn't much of a technique to them, but brioche is acceptable. So if you wanted to make the exploration station, for example, it's got a brioche section in it. Intarsia is again acceptable. So if you wanted to do a big butterfly on something, of course, stranded knitting, fair isle knitting, brioche, shadow knitting, double knitting, where you are essentially knitting on both sides of the knitting. There are so many different color play techniques, and there's sort of like slip stitch patterns as well. I'm very intrigued with mosaic knitting, and that's something that I think I'll set as a goal during the winter, to make something with mosaic knitting. I actually have a Vogue knitting magazine upstairs. I wish I brought it down to show you, that had a whole bunch of mosaic knitting in it, and it was very, very beautiful projects. There are lots of mosaic knitting patterns. Nastasia Hornby, I believe, is a designer. Moonstruck Knits, she's known as. She's got beautiful mosaic shawls, for example. So that's something that I hope to try during the time of the knit along, during the time of our color play knit along. So that'll start on December 24th. If you want to join in with some sort of color play, please feel free. We can do it on Instagram. You can have the hashtag of colourplayKAL, and maybe we should have colourplayKAL Christmas Eve cast on. That just seems like way too much. But you could of course use the Christmas Eve cast on hashtag as well, and then that'll go until July 1st. I am going to be, this is a lot of yarn, so it is actually being housed right now in this bag by Dolphina, that I had gotten at the Twist Fiber Festival. You can find her on Instagram as Dolphina13, I believe, and she makes fabulous bags and also dyes yarn, and is a maker out of somewhere in Quebec. I cannot remember exactly where she lives. So anyway, I got this bag at Twist. So this project is being housed in here right now. And our other two KALs that we have going on right now, the It's About Time KAL and the Garment Galore KAL, will be shutting down at the end of this month. So in early January, I'll be closing the threads, probably either at midnight on the 31st or early in the morning on the 1st of January. And then I'll be having a special edition prize giveaway for those people who participated. Those were so much fun this year. And although I'm starting with the colourplayKAL for next year, which will be open to any kind of item, there will be some other knit-alongs as well. I just haven't quite decided, but I got all excited about color work and color play because of this giveaway from the from Mina's collection. So I thought, let's go for it. It'll inspire me to make more color work type projects, and perhaps it'll inspire you too. So the next thing that I wanted to share with you were just a couple of things that have come into my life recently. I'll just grab them up because they're all over here. So one thing I got recently, couple of things. First, first there are these lovely little posters, and I'll be including some of these that came from my friend Ailey, who is part of our group from the retreat last year. It says, wool is yarn, but yarn is wool. Oh, but not all yarn is wool. So, and with a picture of some alpacas there. So that's really fun. So I'll probably be including a couple of these because there are 3, one for me and a couple for you in some of the oh no, there are 5 actually. So some of these will be going in giveaways, in future giveaways. But they were being held in the most recent Making magazine, which is a beautiful edition. I have to say, there isn't an edition that I haven't loved, but this is focusing on yellow, and there are just so many beautiful projects here, knitting and otherwise. But there are a couple of knitting projects that I am particularly taken by, or taken with. And one in particular is this sweater here, which is such an interesting sweater. It's by Paula Pereira, and it's a yoke sweater with some embroidery on it. Now, earlier in November, I took a workshop through Espace Tricot on embroidery, on knitting. And right now the person's name, Carolyn Bloom was her name. And it was a mind-blowing 3-hour workshop on this embroidery technique on knitting, which was very sort of sachiko style. There's something very Japanese, very geometric about it. Absolutely beautiful. And so it's just made me think a lot about embroidery on knitting, and that sweater being gorgeous on its own, but the fact that it also has the embroidery on it has just made me quite excited about it. There's also this lovely colorwork combo here that is designed by the petite knitter, whose name is Wei Xian Chan, and it's just lovely as well. There are so many pretty patterns in here and lovely ideas. With the embroidery, there are also these mittens, which are stunning. Of course, toys by Susan B. Anderson, which also have embroidery on them. Just absolutely beautiful things. There's some lovely sewing projects. There is this jumpsuit, which is really fun. And as well as some piecework like this beautiful pillow, and just really great ideas. This needle felted wall hanging of goldenrod, it's just so incredibly beautiful. One could spend a whole year on this, making all the different things. And yeah, there's just so full of lovely things. A pieced bag. I haven't sewn in such a long time, and this is really inspiring me. There's some weaving, there's some, what is this Korean technique called again? Ugaji, I think it's called. I cannot remember what it's called, where there's a certain method of sewing done to create this sort of placemat type of thing. So absolutely beautiful edition. So glad I got it. I think I have them all. They're really wonderful. This one, I have to say, I'm finding really stunning. We're getting to that point in the podcast where Selma's voice starts getting hoarse. And then Megan Nodecker, who is a designer in our community, and her sister, and I'm afraid I don't know her sister's name, they have actually, the Cat Bells cardigan, which I talked about recently, which I thought I would cast on right away, and I haven't, but I am intending to, and I thought maybe that'll be a nice one for the early spring to have as an outdoor cardigan. They've launched a shop with their patterns, but also with notions. And I could not help myself but jump right in and get a couple of things. I ended up buying these wonderful snake scissors. And also this grafting kit, or not grafting kit, I should say, never mind, this needle holder. Beautiful wooden needle holder, which unscrews, and you've got different types of needles inside. Three different types of needles for different types of work needed for those, grafting or sewing in ends. And I just loved the fact that it came in this beautiful little container. And the package also came with a bunch of these little markers. That was an add-on. And I ended up buying another one with just the needle holder and some of those little stitch markers that will be added in a giveaway in the future. I'm thinking probably for the Garment Galore Cal or the It's About Time Cal. And it came in this wonderful box. So that's one purchase. Really lovely little website. She launched it, wanted to support her, and so got those. And then recently, Bente of Arctic Crafts by Bente, who is, you've seen yarn from her. I had a giveaway with some of her yarn a little while ago. I made the wonderful speckled space socks out of her rock garden colorway. She was having a sale on her single plies, and there was not a colorway I didn't love. I was really struggling to decide, and I wanted to buy a few of the colors, but I ended up settling on 2 of them. Now, I thought I had bought 2 of this colorway, but I'd actually bought 2 of this colorway, which is funny. So I ended up buying this one, which is called Brickyard, which is just it's actually coming up more orange than it really is. Let me see if I can get the true color. There's more of a brickness to it than an orangeness, but it's an absolutely gorgeous color. And I thought I had gotten 2 of these because I thought about making like a bright orange ranunculus type sweater. But I ended up buying 2 of these, which is the Moody Mauve. And so I had thought I was going to make a ranunculus, and I think I still will. But then I realized, is this too close to my other ranunculus? This is my original ranunculus. I think this is a lot darker, and if I add a burgundy yarn to it, then it will be quite different, right? Tell me I'm okay with this. Are they too close to one another? I think they'll end up having a very different vibe. But I really love this color. And I was looking at different mohairs recently, and I think I'll find something that sort of continues to deepen this, and that will make it quite different from this. So that's my thinking anyway. And Bente was also, had also created, because of some sadness in her family, had created a new colorway called Resilience. She did this to lift her spirits, and this colorway she is donating a portion of it, I think €2 to the Cancer Society of Norway with every purchase. So of course I had to support her in that, and I got this wonderful Corriedale sock yarn called Resilience. So she's got some on her web store, and she still has some of her wonderful single plies, which I'm telling you, the colors are just absolutely stunning. So go check her out. There's the label. This one I may keep for a giveaway in the future. I haven't quite decided. It's really lovely, and I think would make really very nice socks. Bente's really good at evening out the speckles and the colors that are going through her yarns. So I can see that this will just knit up really beautifully. Congratulations, Bente. So those are the acquisitions. There are a couple of others I have to say, but I'll show them to you at another time. And so, yeah, aside from that, that really is the end of any yarny content. Apart from that, there's been, now that the weather is colder and the evenings get dark quickly, I find this is the time of the year that I want to sit down and knit, drink a cup of tea, and watch something. So there's been quite a bit of watching going on. Of course, there was The Crown season 4, which I thoroughly enjoyed and gobbled up very quickly. It was good, although I have to say that because it's in a way my period of time, I remember exactly when Lady Diana died, I found it a little bit difficult to watch. And I'm not completely sure I loved the characterization of the way things happened and the yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I still totally enjoyed it. And that is one that, even though I'm not a big royal person, I would go back and watch. It's beautifully done. I also just finished, Alejandro and I watched The Queen's Gambit together, which I was actually really sad when it finished. I really enjoyed it a lot. At the beginning, I felt it was a little cold as a series, but it just got better and better in a way. And oh, it takes place in the 60s, and the main character's clothes are just amazing. So really, really enjoyed that a lot. And aside from that, I was listening to a podcast. It's a CBC podcast called Recall, How to Start a Revolution. And it's actually about the FLQ crisis, the Front de Libération de Québec. This was a separatist movement that happened in the 60s that was a violent episode in Quebec history. And this podcast was sort of walking through it and walking through some of the events that happened with interviews. It was a seven-part podcast, with each episode being about 40 minutes. Really, really enjoyed that a lot. It's interesting because we came to Canada when I was a baby. I was 20 months old. We came to Canada in 1968. We first arrived in Montreal in March of 1968 in the midst of the FLQ crisis. And soon thereafter, I think like 3 or 4 months later, moved to Quebec City. And I never actually completely knew why we moved to Quebec City. I was led to understand that it had to do something with my dad's work, with Montreal being disappointing, with me getting sick a lot in Montreal. But I started to think, is it possible that the FLQ crisis had an impact on why we moved to Quebec City? I unfortunately won't know. I should have asked that question of my father when he was around, and my mother, unfortunately, at this point would be unable to tell me. So anyway, it was very, very interesting to listen to. If you're interested in hearing a little bit about that, I thought it was really well done, and takes through the kidnappings and some of the bombings that happened during that time. I've also read a whole bunch of books. Well, not a whole bunch of books. Let's see. 3 books in the last few months, and that I haven't talked to you about. One was The Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi. You may recall last year her book Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi was one of my favorite books of last year. It was, I thought, a masterpiece. Absolutely brilliant piece of work about 2 sisters in Ghana in the 1700s, one who becomes a slave and is taken to the States, and the other one who marries a British slave business guy. I don't even know what you would call them at that point, and takes through the generations of those 2 sisters. And it was just amazing. So she came out with a second book in the last year called Transcendent Kingdom, which is about a Ghanaian immigrant and her 2 children in the States. And it's a very interesting book. I would say that it's really good. I don't think I would call it the masterpiece that was Homegoing, but Homegoing was really a special book in some way. This book is very good, very thought-provoking about addiction, about science versus faith, or science and faith, about the hardship of being an immigrant. And I really enjoyed it a lot. It was very good. Not always super easy to listen to, but I really like her writing. I think she's a really profound thinker and exposes issues in a way that's really interesting, and a bit intense. So anyway, I recommend that book if you are looking for a book. If you haven't read Homegoing, I would start with that one. It's really, really an amazing book. The other book I read after that was by James McBride, and it was part of the book club with Shelby and the book club. I started reading that in the summer, I think, but then had to give the book back to the library. I got it back and finished the book. I have to say that in the first part of the book, I was not fully enjoying it. There are so many characters that I just couldn't keep, especially maybe because I was listening to it. I found it hard to keep track of all these different characters. But by the second half of the book, I completely got into it. A lot of humor in this book, delving into also issues around being a Black American at a certain period of time in more recent history, in the projects in Brooklyn, I believe. And while Transcendent Kingdom is sort of intense and a bit heavier, this book is light and funny, and the characters are just comical and rich at the same time. And the main character is just very interesting. So it's talking about kind of some sort of gangster behavior that's happening at that time among Blacks, among the Irish, among the Italians, and just creates this wonderful, wonderful setting of the projects and the people that are around and involved. And there's a little bit of magical element to it as well, and it was great fun. I recommend it. And then the last book that I finished was The Marrow Thieves by Cherie Dimaline, or Dimaline, or Dimaline. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce her last name. She's an Indigenous Canadian writer. I had read her Empire of Wild, which was her second book. I read that last winter. And The Marrow Thieves is the one that really catapulted her to the forefront, I have to say, in Canadian Indigenous literature recently, because it is a dystopian youth novel, YA novel. And I really enjoyed it. I have to say, I really like YA literature often. They're so plot driven, and they just get into the action right away. They're really fun. I just thought this book was really rich with so many notions around Indigenous culture, and a beautiful way to teach young people about symbolism today, as well as Indigenous culture. And even though it was a dystopian novel, and it was, the premise was kind of quite dark, it was dealt with in such a light manner. I really enjoyed it a lot. And so highly recommend that as a novel for a youth person, as well as beyond youth. And now I wanted something, kind of light and fluffy. So I've chosen to read the most recent book by Lisa Jewell, called The Invisible Girl. I've just started it, so I can't say too much about it. It is, sort of a mystery type of novel, and I had read Then She Was Gone by her and really liked it. So I thought, something just kind of ordinary for now, and I'm enjoying that a lot. And I think that just about wraps up everything that I had in my show notes. Only 2 pages today, but they were pretty full of stuff. And I hope that this podcast has found you well, and I hope that you will enjoy December in whatever way you enjoy it. I know that not everybody finds this time of the year a celebratory time of the year, but I hope you'll find other ways to enjoy the month. And I will see you probably between Christmas and New Year's. I have a funny feeling that I'll find the time then when life is a little bit more relaxed to podcast. So until then, take care. Happy knitting. Bye.
All the stars have come in close just to see you, I suppose, and they're a-gleaming. You must be dreaming, and the sun has said goodbye with a twinkle in his eye. He's left the ocean with sweet emotion. We go dancing in the rain, riding on a midnight train, away so slowly. And the moon is looking down on the sleepy side of town, and he's so lonely. I love you only. I love you only. All the birds have taken flight. It's their favorite time of night, when they can hear you from somewhere near you. And the palm trees try to bend to be closer to their friends. They're made of magic. Reach out and grab it. We go dancing in the rain, on a midnight train, away so slowly. And the moon is looking down on the sleepy side of town, and he's so lonely.